Hey everyone, I'm Mike Oder, head of sales for Midland Annuity, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Mic'd Up with Midland. Today we're going to be talking about the 5 secrets to a better culture, which is relevant today more than ever, and we've got a special guest back with us, Drew Harden. Drew, welcome.
Thanks for having me back, Mike.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back. You're the CEO of Blue Compass, a firm that we've partnered with a lot over the years. You've actually becoming a regular here. This is our second podcast that we've done together. We featured you all on a webinar. You bring a ton of content. And during our last podcast, it just came up in discussion about the culture that you've created over at Blue Compass. And we decided, hey, we should see if we could have you back and have you talk about how you've been intentional about culture, because it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's something here at Midland that has been, it's a differentiator for us in terms of just even hiring talent, but retaining talent. But you've actually got this thing dialed in pretty good as a small business owner. Your business isn't small anymore, but I think it's really relevant to a lot of you folks tuning in who are running small businesses of your own. And it's really, really important that if they have good talent, they keep it and they create this culture within their office, because they're bringing new clients in every day. They're bringing clients in for many, many years that they've had a relationship. And people can tell if there's a good culture in an office or not.
That's right. Absolutely. It's evident. It's evident. You can almost just feel it in the air.
Yeah, for sure. You got a really strong background. It's pretty impressive, Drew. You've been a leader in digital marketing. You've been a keynote speaker across the country. Some of your clients include Spalding Sports Equipment, Napa Auto Parts, the NFL, and you've been featured in major publications, including USA Today. So again, thanks for taking time to spend it with us. We've got a lot. We've actually got quite a bit to cover today. We're going to talk about how good culture makes everything else better. We'll talk about the 5 elements for a great workplace culture, and then really why culture has to be continually fostered. So, how does that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, before we jump in, I gave an overview of your background, but why don't you talk a little bit about what led you to start Blue Compass and kind of really what sparked your energy around that?
Sure. Well, Blue Compass is a digital marketing agency, and we started it because we wanted to be the best at that and help really great organizations improve their online presence. But the second reason we started it was because we wanted to have a great place to work where we enjoyed work every single day. And I used to work in a toxic environment. A lot of us have had that experience, and there was drama and gossip, and it was really, really negative. So that was instrumental when we started Blue Compass in 2007. And for the first few years, we did have an incredible culture. It was wonderful. Of course, we were really small, just started with 2 of us. We grew a little every year. And there was laughs in the hallways, and we were giving credit to one another instead of taking it. And it was just a great place to work. And then in 2012, what I think is probably the best thing and the worst thing that ever happened to us occurred, which is we got a really huge client. And that was great because it helped us grow, but it was negative because we grew too fast. Mm-hmm. And we went from 8 people to 16 people almost overnight because we had to. And Mike, I think that was the first time I ever saw any drama or gossip creep in to the office. And I was shocked. How could this happen? I thought the power of my personality was enough to fuel a great culture, right? But it wasn't. It wasn't. So that's when I realized, I have to be really serious about this. Great culture doesn't just happen because I want it to happen. I have to be purposeful about this. And it kind of took me on a journey, over the last decade plus of exploring this and reading about this and talking to people and figuring out, the culture code. And, I'm happy to report we were able to improve the culture. We put a few things in place and it turned around, and now we have a great place to work. We win national awards for our culture. And you're right, it's a differentiator.
Yeah, for sure. So you got me curious. You identified that, okay, our culture is not what it was and not what you want it to be, and to the standard that it could be. So where did you start? Like, what was this thing? Okay, I'm going to start here.
The first thing we did to turn it around was to clearly define our mission and our values. Almost every organization out there has core values, but the problem is most people don't know them. they're not visible values. So we chose 5 value statements. They're very clear. And, this was many years ago. We still have the same value statements. And I realized that as the CEO, my number one purpose is to make our mission and our values known to our team, to live them out myself, and to help them do the same. And if I can do that, we're going to have a place where it might not be perfect, but it's going to be good. It's going to be supportive. People are going to feel like, we have their backs.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned having that mission and that vision, core values. We have core values here at our organization. Everybody knows them. They're printed on the cards. They're at everybody's cubes, everybody's desk, and it's just a really good reminder every day.
It is, and one of the ways I think that they can be made most visible is by the behavior of the leaders. So, if you're a leader, if you have people that report to you, you can't expect behaviors that you're not giving yourself. One of the best ways to get a behavior is to model it yourself. So like our first value statement is, we are positive. We believe on looking at the bright side. So if I'm going to go around and complain, if I'm going to be negative, that's tough on me because it's an imperative that I'm positive. I'm generally in a good mood. I'm generally smiling. That doesn't mean I need to fake it and be someone I'm not, but it does mean I need to be my best self at work.
Yeah, absolutely. Share some stories, if you would, on how Blue Compass now thrives off culture.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one of the things that we're big believers in is acknowledging people and also just having joy in the office. And for some reason, Mike, over the years, we've all gotten this idea that Mondays are bad and Fridays are good, that the weekends are bad and weekends are good, weekdays are bad.
It's finally Wednesday.
Yeah. And, work isn't bad. Work doesn't have to be bad. Now, there's a lot of bad workplaces. There's bad leaders out there and everything. But the thing is, work can be such a source of joy, of relationships, of personal development, of financial development, of growth. There's so many good things that can come out of work. And sometimes I think we miss that, or there's just workplaces out there that aren't too great. So we really try to lean into the fun and the spontaneity of work. And there's a lot of things we do to keep our culture unique. Now, I have some crazy fun stories of things we've done, but I think I want to underscore here that culture isn't an event. A lot of people think culture is a ping pong table and beer on Fridays. Culture is the sum of the values, the leadership, and the interactions in the office every day. It's how we feel when we go home in the evening or when we log off on the evening. Like I said, it's something you can almost feel. So it's not just an event or an occurrence. That being said, doing fun things in the workplace can really enhance that. So an example of that is, I think it was October, I decided to set up a basketball hoop out in our parking lot and just announced to everyone, hey, we're going to do trick shots off the roof and, we're going to invite you up to the roof in groups. And if anyone makes a trick shot, everyone gets a bonus. And I thought that'd be really fun. And so we set up a camera and I was like, this is going to be a fun video too. We can put it on YouTube. And so that was a weird, spontaneous thing to do. We didn't plan, for that in schedules, but we went up and did it and everyone had a great time and was laughing. People were shooting, the basketball one by one. I thought this would be easier. And, people kept shooting and no one was making a basket. And I started to get a little worried, like this is going to be a really sad video if no one makes this. And then finally, the very last guy to shoot it, Jeff, who's our IT director, he shot it and it bounced and it went in and everyone really celebrated. So we do have the video on YouTube, but it was really fantastic and everyone enjoyed it. So just doing spontaneous, crazy things like that, sometimes, it's memorable. It's different. It gets people out of the ordinary. They talk about it. It creates memories. People still talk about it today.
Yeah.
That can be really powerful.
It's so easy to come to work, put your head down and go from task to task to task because we're all busy. The world seems to be getting busier every day. And it's real easy to have several days or several weeks go by without really looking up. So I love the spontaneity piece of it. You mentioned that you really got on to being intentional about culture when you landed a big client. That was kind of where you saw the shift. Our folks tuning in they're bringing new clients into their business, big clients into their business every single day. A lot of times they're running several meetings all day, every day. So it is head down. But how have you seen the impact that the culture has had in terms of success on your business?
First of all, it helps retain good people. And so if someone is going into a workplace where they're supported, where people aren't taking the credit for them, where good leaders take more of the blame and give more of the credit, that's a really great environment to be in, and people really like that. And so it's great for retention. It's also great for building relationships. If you have a really good culture and people like one another, generally, if there's friendships in the office, that's fantastic. One of the best things you can do for your culture is to create great relationships, because when there's great relationships, people are more willing to go out of their way for one another, to go the extra mile for one another, to help one another. And that helps productivity, helps everything be better. That's really incredible. So I think those are some of the reasons we've seen culture be such a difference maker. And then I would also say, our clients can tell. And if you're supported, if you're happy at work, you're going to do better work, but you're also going to have better interactions with your clients, and they're going to benefit from that as well. So sometimes people think culture is very internal. It is, but it's also external.
Yeah. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. You talked about the relationship piece and having good relationships with your coworkers. I mean, it does everything from you have each other's back. You pick up, you can pick up slack if somebody happens to be out, and gladly do it. My guess is feedback is probably part of your culture. At least I know on ours, feedback is huge. And one of the things at Midland is we have senior leadership all the way down has created this environment to where it's comfortable and acceptable to give and receive feedback. And we say around here that feedback is a gift. And really what it's done is it's kind of that one of those cornerstones to building those relationships. Because if somebody has a bad day, it's one thing just to, keep it, grumble about having to pick up somebody's slack. But it's another thing to say, hey, I noticed you're not yourself today. What's going on?
Yep.
Or, hey, you probably didn't expect that the situation was going to happen like it did. I want to let you know from my perspective, this is the direction that it was perceived. And I know that wasn't your intent, but I wanted to let you know.
Yep.
And it's so much easier when that feedback is willingly received by individuals. Is feedback part of?
Oh, of course. Okay. Absolutely. The best leaders give critical feedback. They offer guidance, but they do so with care and compassion. And, advice without relationship is not as well received.
Yeah.
And so, that's really crucial and that's really critical. And I think that's where having one-on-ones with your team members is important. If someone reports to you, I really encourage you to have a one-on-one with them. And the cadence should be very regular. It could be once every 2 weeks. It could be once a week, 30 minutes an hour, whatever that might be, but create it and stick to it. And we found that generally, people want to have those one-on-ones. And if you're just blow them off, you're like, we don't need it this week. That's a really negative signal to send to them. Often they take that personally. So you have to be really, really good about those one-on-ones. And it's a time to listen, to ask questions, but offer guidance as well.
I think that's a subtle point that I want to make sure everyone caught, because culture can drift, and you have to have these touch points to keep it back on track. But something as little as scheduling the one-on-ones and sticking to them. It's easy to think, okay, everything's going well. All right, we're just going to let this thing roll. You still need to have those touch points.
It's important. It's really important to stick with them. My wife worked at an organization where the person she reported to didn't do this. And one time she was waiting for him for the one-on-one, and she waited like 15 minutes, and he finally showed up and he said, well, do you even have anything for me? So that's not a great signal to send, And so just treating it like an inconvenience, sometimes people take that a little bit personally. So you gotta treat it as a sacred time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I want to get into your latest book, Retain. You talk about 5 powerful elements that define great workplace culture. So the first one, visible values.
Yep, we touched on that one already. Again, it's super important to have those values be very visible. And every organization has values, whether you set them or not. Your culture will just define them on their own if you don't set them. So you might as well set them, and you might as well make them visible and be purposeful about them.
Be intentional, have them visible. Appreciative acknowledgement. We kind of touched on that a little bit as well.
We did. So I saw a study recently, Mike, and it was of Americans who had recently left their workplaces. And the number one reason, 79% of people left because of lack of acknowledgement. So there's just something important about the idea of being recognized. We all want to know what we're doing matters.
Yeah.
And it's easy not to do, but it's also easy to do.
Yeah.
And so just giving someone a shout out, saying thank you, that sort of thing is really, really important.
It is something that it doesn't cost anything to do. It doesn't take a lot of time. Just noticing. Just one little thing.
Yep. There's two secrets we found when it comes to acknowledgement that might be able to enhance your acknowledgement of your team members. One is individualization. If you recognize people globally in your company, in other words, if you give everyone a gift card to Amazon, that's great. But you'll get more mileage out of it if you give them a gift card to each of their favorite places. People appreciate individualization much more. There's a great book called The 5 Types of Appreciation in the Workplace. And everyone likes to be appreciated differently. It's just like the 5 love languages. Everyone likes to be appreciated differently. And so it might be words of encouragement. Maybe that's what really means a lot to you. Whereas for me, it's tangible gifts. If someone brings me a coffee, that matters more to me. So at Blue Compass, when we have someone join our team, we have them fill out a form. And, one of the questions we ask is, how do you like to be acknowledged?
Yeah.
And we also ask them, what's your favorite coffee? What's your favorite sports team? What's your favorite snack? That sort of thing. And this is in our intranet. So we arm not just the leaders, but everyone on our team to be able to acknowledge people the most effectively at any time. And then the second thing that we found is helpful too is surprise. And that sounds a little weird. And most people say, I don't like to be surprised, but surprising someone enhances the emotion of the experience, whatever experience it is, positive or negative, it enhances that. So I gave that example of us shooting baskets off the roof. I didn't tell anyone about it. It was a surprise. And that's why, if I'm going to bring someone a coffee in the morning, I'll never tell them it's coming first, because when you're surprised by something and didn't expect it and didn't anticipate it, you didn't hope for something else, it just seems to matter more.
I really love this piece of it. Just getting to know the individuals in your office and what makes them tick. I like about how you've really gotten detailed about that. You hit it on the head. Mine are words of encouragement. Kate, on our marketing team that builds almost all the content that our advisors use, she's kind of a tangible gifts person, and it is so easy to just take a few minutes if you've got 5 folks in your office to understand what's important to them through your one-on-ones or just in daily interactions. But I really love how you said, be tailored and specific with each one. Don't just blanket recognize everybody with the same thing.
Yep.
I really love that. Jovial joy.
So I talked about this one as well, but there's no reason not to have joy and fun in the office. And I do think the best leaders don't just allow fun, they cause it. And so that's something that we try to do in our office. Have some laughs. Don't take ourselves too seriously. The worst leaders take themselves too seriously. Yeah. And if you're going to take yourself too seriously, that probably causes your team members to do the same. So just having fun in the office is memorable, it's positive, and you'll get a lot of mileage out of that as well.
Just because you don't take yourself too seriously doesn't mean that you don't take the function, the role, or the business too seriously. There's a difference there.
Correct. In other words, if you're bringing your ego in and you're saying, I need to be acknowledged, I need to get the credit, I'm number one, I'm the best, that's a problem. If you can set all that aside and be vulnerable when you need to be vulnerable. Everyone else always knows your weaknesses.
Right.
You don't have to hide them.
Yeah.
Just, be vulnerable, be honest about it, and don't take yourself too seriously.
Constant connection. We talked to that a little bit about with regular touch points, but what's constant connection?
Yep. So again, this comes down to relationship. You got to have connections with the people in your office. You have to have connections, especially from those who report to you. If you're a bigger organization and you have managers having connections with them and they have to have connections with those that report to them, the worst thing you can do is ignore someone at your office. They're going to leave. Yeah. So asking them, hey, how was your weekend? Knowing their kids' names, caring about them, again, having those one-on-ones and listening. The best leaders listen. I think one of the biggest problems in business today is leaders who listen to reply and they don't listen to understand. So you have to be a good listener too.
I really love that. Listen to understand, not just to reply. Number 5, genuine growth.
So you can have all 4 of these things we've mentioned before, but if you don't have an organization where people can grow and develop, I don't think you can have a truly great culture. There's just something about the human spirit. We all want to get better, whether we know it or not. We want to improve. We want to grow. So, and that doesn't just mean, grow into a different title, although it could, but it means opportunities to learn, to grow and things like that. So, one of the ways we do this, Mike, is through having, regular webinars. We'll do book clubs at Blue Compass where we're all learning about something and sharing with one another. Or we try to send people to conferences when we can. We'll do like lunch and learns and things like that. These type of things are really, really important. And another thing I think is, if you can understand where your team members want to go, what is their vision? What is their goal? What are their aspirations? It could be to be CEO of the company, but maybe it's to buy a house. Maybe it's to have a family. So if you can understand those things and then talk to them about it or even help them get there, they're going to absolutely appreciate it and they're going to stick around. Doesn't
necessarily have to mean climbing the corporate ladder.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, I think that's a really good segue into the next topic, and that is hiring. And you mentioned that's kind of where a lot of this came together for you when you had to hire quite a few folks. But how do you continue to build your culture, but also protect it when you're hiring new folks?
Right. Well, one of the quickest ways to influence your culture is to hire someone into it. So you got to hire the right people. We've found that you have to be really purposeful and ideally kind of slow when you hire someone. When we hire someone, one of the first things we want to do is understand how they perceive our values. We have 5 values, again, like I said. And so sometimes if I'm interviewing, I'll say, hey, which one of these is your favorite value? Why? Which one of these is least important? Why? Can you give us an example of how you lived this one out, at a previous job? All these type of questions, because I think our values are fantastic, but they're probably not right for everyone. And that's just fine. Our culture is great, but it's not right for everyone. Not every culture is right for someone. So again, our first value is we are positive. Some people aren't very positive, and that's fine. They'd probably fit in better somewhere else. And we don't want to bring someone on our team who's going to be super negative all the time. Yeah. That's not a good fit for us. So we have to be very purposeful about it. We would never hire someone after just 1 interview. We would never hire someone after just 2 interviews. We have to do at least 3, and we have to have one of them outside the office at a social place. We've just come up with a lot of rules like these because we need to really do our due diligence and ensure this is going to be someone who's fantastic for our culture.
You really got to make sure that you're getting to know that individual. I like that. Purposeful, being slow to hire. What are some red flags that you've seen over the years to watch for when this could be something that doesn't fit with the culture? Because it's easy to sniff out. For example, we're positive. Are you positive? Yeah, I'm positive. It's easy to say one thing.
Right.
3 interviews, you're going to flush it out, and you can usually tell if somebody's faking it. But what are some other red flags that you look out for?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're not perfect. We have certainly hired people before who weren't quite right for us. So I think it's really difficult. It's the whole interview process that most of us do is kind of an imperfect process because you can never figure out, exactly who someone is just with 1 or 2 or even 3 interviews. So that's why I think, getting second opinions, references and things like that is important. And the worst thing that can happen is when an interview is going on, if both parties are lying to one another, trying to sound like they're really great.
Yeah.
You got to be honest about it if you're interviewing, and, both parties should do so. So I think, red flags are anytime someone is, hesitant to get into a certain topic and kind of dodges around it. I mean, that's a red flag. I think it's really good to ask questions like, why are you interested in working here? And what makes you want to leave your current employer? And, what's your favorite thing about where you work now? What's your least favorite things? A red flag for me is when someone badmouths their current employer.
Yeah.
And you can give a good reason for why you want to leave without badmouthing them. Maybe it's the worst place in the world. Maybe it's a horrible place to work. But I still think there's a positive way to express that. And, saying, look, our values don't align. I'm more interested in X, Y, and Z, that type of thing. So I'm personally not interested in someone who's going to be negative and badmouth others.
One thing that I've seen that's important over the years is you can have everything in alignment as far as a leader goes. It seems like though you also need the people on your team, or maybe even a go-to person or two, to also be an extension of you. I'm thinking about our advisors that are tuned in. That on any given office, 3 to 10 employees, and the advisor's time is maximized when they're sitting in front of clients. And so a lot of times it's back to back all day. That's what they do. So what have you seen and how have you, I guess, been intentional around having somebody on your team who's the captain or the leader, or maybe it's one of your managers that is an extension of you? I feel like that is one of the really keys to keeping culture alive as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. I think it is too. The best leaders don't create followers, they create other leaders.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And, a lot of us, maybe if we're, the owner or, the leader, whatever that might be, it's really tempting to do everything ourselves, not to delegate and to have everything run through you. But that's also not very sustainable. And it took me a long time to learn that. I always thought it's not going to be done well if I'm not involved in it. So it's really investing in, your other leaders and your managers, whatever they might be called, and pouring into them, because as you grow, you cannot pour into everyone in the same way. So you have to select, the leaders and pour into them and listen to them and help them as much as possible. And you shouldn't be expected. If you have 10 people on your team, you can't equally pour into everyone. If you have 20 people on your team, you really can't. So you have to be selective about who you pour into and how you guide them.
I love that. And delegation, I'm glad you brought that up. Delegation is a really good way to give ownership. And then that also kind of creates the full circle that you talked about earlier. You delegate, you give ownership. They do it in a manner that you like. You recognize that. You give them the feedback, and then the whole cycle starts perpetuating itself.
Yes. Because again, that's more sustainable. And over the years, Mike, when he started out, I did everything. I did project management, I did design, I did, digital marketing, I did legal stuff, and probably none of it very well, but I felt like I was doing a great job.
Right.
And over the years, it was hard, but I gave up project management, and suddenly that started going smoother. And I gave up designing, and suddenly that started going smoother. And I gave up most of the new business, and that started going smoother. So sometimes we really surprise ourselves when we step away and give something up.
There's this control thing where this is my ship, and if it's going to go down, it's going to go down the way I want it to go down. But if we can just let go of that a little bit,
yes,
and bring in people that can handle some of that stuff for us.
Yeah, and there's more peace in that.
Absolutely. Drew, I really appreciate you taking time to come in today, talk about how culture is important, what you guys have done over at Blue Compass. If you want more information on Drew's book, make sure you grab it. Again, it's called Retain. I hope you find this valuable, because culture is so huge. We've seen the success here. Obviously, Drew's seen the success, and I've seen a lot of the success for you in your office, but it's something that we really do need to be intentional about. So I appreciate you tuning in today. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.